Why do so many spiritual teachers, who seem completely solid, eventually collapse in ways that shock even their closest students? The answer is not scandal, ego, or corruption, though those often follow. The answer is something far more structural and far more predictable. When a teacher has not personally lived through the territory they are mapping for others, the wisdom they carry is borrowed, and borrowed wisdom has a shelf life. Under enough real-world pressure, it does not bend, it simply rots, and the signs appear long before the collapse. Think of a map drawn by someone who has only read about the terrain, never crossed it themselves. The map can look flawless, detailed, confident, beautifully rendered in every visible way. But the moment a traveler hits the ravine that was never marked, the map becomes a liability, not a guide. Spiritual teaching works exactly the same way, and the collapse is never really a surprise. It is a delayed confirmation of something that was always structurally true. The teacher did not fall from grace. They were never standing on ground that could hold that kind of weight. There's a map of the Grand Canyon, and then there's the Grand Canyon, and they are not the same thing. A map can tell you where the cliffs drop and where the water runs cold, but it cannot tell you how your legs felt on the third day when the trail turned mean. Some teachers have walked that third day, and it changed the way they carry everything after. Others have read every map ever drawn, memorized the elevation lines, and can quote the altitude with startling precision. The difference doesn't show up in a lecture hall, where language can cover a lot of ground. It shows up when someone in the room is actually falling, and needs more than a description of the fall. Earned wisdom has a texture that borrowed wisdom simply cannot fake under pressure. One teacher knows the canyon because the canyon got into their bones. The other knows the canyon the way you know a country you've only seen in photographs. Borrowed wisdom sounds exactly like earned wisdom, until life stops being theoretical. Grief doesn't ask for your credentials before it arrives at the door, heavy and patient. A teacher who mapped the territory from a book can quote the right words about loss, beautifully. But watch what happens when their own marriage fractures, or their body starts to fail them slowly. The language stays polished, but something underneath it goes very, very quiet. That quiet is the sound of a framework that was never load-bearing from the start. Real pressure doesn't attack the surface. It finds the hollow places, the ones nobody thought to reinforce. A student in genuine crisis can feel the difference, even if they can't yet name what they're sensing. The teacher deflects, reframes, or disappears behind a wall of elevated language. What looked like depth was always just distance. And distance, dressed in robes, is still just a person standing far from the fire. So how do you find someone worth following when the stakes are real? You stop listening to what they say and start watching what they've survived. A teacher who has walked the territory carries something in their voice that borrowed wisdom simply cannot fake. It's not eloquence, and it's not confidence. It's the specific weight of someone who lost something and kept going anyway. Ask yourself whether their peace looks earned or whether it looks untested. Ask whether their answers come from a place of genuine reckoning or from a library they never had to live inside. Credentials don't answer that question, and charisma definitely won't answer it either. The real signal is friction, evidence that life pushed back hard and they were changed by the pressure. That kind of teacher doesn't just point toward the territory. They still carry the mud on their boots.